Hello, everyone, and welcome to our series, Finding Inner Peace, Even in the Chaos, which we all know there is no shortage of these days out there. Whether you found your way here from our Infinite Kids community or from my coaching practice or really just anywhere out there on the internet these days, welcome. I'm really excited to dig into all these practices with you guys. I'll have to give you a quick heads up that I typically teach in-person classes or workshops or my coaching sessions. I'm actually usually talking to people, and it's not common that I actually just record videos. So you'll have to bear with me as I kind of get used to this new format of actually not talking to anyone and instead talking to the camera. But if you're new to my approach, I've been deeply immersed in the fields of human potential, inner awareness, neuropsychology, consciousness, and more over the last decade and lifetime. It's really my passion to help people tap back into their true alignment, their inner essence, and just find more joy, peace, and presence, in their days. And I was deeply called to create this series, I think, for one, just so many conversations that I've been having with clients just over the last couple weeks, and then obviously everything that's going on in the external world right now, but we're really going through a massive increase in consciousness on this planet, and things are not going to be slowing down anytime soon. So I just can't stress how critical it is to truly identify whether it's the practices I share here or other ones that you come up with or have tried over the years. Just really find some core practices that you can kind of stick to, that are enjoyable and that fit into your life. And I always start all my sessions with an intention. And I would like to do that for this series as well. I could probably list off a couple of intentions here, and if you caught my email or any of the posts, and that's how you kind of find your way to this series, you probably noticed some of the, kind of different objectives that I had for this session. But if I could just make it really tangible for you guys, one of my core, I guess, things that I like to bring into all of my teachings and my practices and things like that, as a busy mom, kind of doing all the things as well, is I like to make things highly practical. And I'd like to make this intention for this series highly practical too. So I'd like you to take a minute just right now, and on a scale of 1 to 10, just think about, how you feel right now about the external world or your life, just everything in general. What's your level of overwhelm, fear, anxiety, just about everything that's kind of going on in your kind of external environment, your external circumstances at the moment. And I just want you to kind of put a number to it. And my intention for this series is, like, if you're at a 7, 8, or 9, to really drop down to like a 2, 3, or 4. Or if you're at a 6, to go down to a 2, to really help you guys step into your power. And when I say your power, I'm not talking about, kind of the egoic way that society has misconstrued or misused power, really, over decades and centuries at this point, but really your power to step into your inner authority, like your ability to realize that you have the impact to shift your life experience, your experience of this moment, in any moment at any time. And so I want you guys to just take a minute to pause this video, write down your intention for this session, have it come from the heart, and just really set a clear intention for what you want to shift in your life going through this series over the next 5 days. All right, and so now we're gonna just jump right into our first practice. And the first practice that I wanna share with you guys, I was honestly a bit surprised about it as it came through. There are probably about 30 or 40 different practices in my toolkit I could have pulled from that apply to this topic and that, just could be really interesting and applicable here. But the way that I develop these series or any programs or things, I really kind of tap in. I drop out of analytical mind and I really try to see what is going to be most useful for this group. And so when I channel these 5 practices in and then just kind of look back at them in hindsight, there's a really interesting arc to the practices. We're going to be looking at this topic from a cognitive lens, from a mind and body lens, and then actually on the last day, we're going to be bringing it all together. It's kind of like a mind, body, and soul practice to kind of pull it all together. So I think you'll really enjoy kind of the arc of this experience that we go through, and I really find it, incredibly influential. So as I kind of mentioned, the first practice today, which I'm calling Circles of Influence, we're actually going to take a more cognitive look about where we're unconsciously placing our focus or our energy. And I was led to, kind of create this with a clear knowing that a lot of us are giving away our power to the external world, and we're doing so in an unconscious way. And so this practice is really about kind of taking a couple moments to sit down and just get really clear on where your influence is and where your influence isn't. So we're going to get into this in more detail, but just to give you guys an idea of what you're going to need, You're just going to need a pen and a sheet of paper. Pretty simple. I'm hoping you guys have those supplies around your house. And in order to kind of just start this practice, I guess just kind of a quick overview is you may have even, kind of heard of this practice before. It's kind of a common cognitive behavioral practice at its core, but what we're really going to be doing is adding kind of a quantum lens to it, and then also adding on some techniques from the contemplative practices to really take it to another level. And this is also really the only practice in this series that has multiple steps. So I just encourage you to kind of listen through for the next couple minutes, kind of understand the practice in its entirety, and then I'll have my team put kind of timestamps in the notes for where I go over the different steps. So if you kind of get to the end of this and you want to go back and revisit, what was step 2 or what was step 3, you can kind of easily navigate to that. So step 1 is I want you guys to grab your paper and your pen, and you may have already kind of guessed it right now, but I want you to draw 2 circles on your paper, one smaller one in the middle and then a larger one on the outside. And then inside of each of those circles, I want you to write 2 things. In the middle, I want you to write things I can directly influence in my life. And then on the outside, I want you to write things I cannot directly influence in my life. And you may have seen this practice before in the word control used, but I find that a lot of people, myself included, as I've kind of worked through over the years, kind of have a lot of baggage around control. And so I think just using the word influence is just a more constructive word. And then I want you to just simply take a few minutes to do a brain dump. I personally found it easier to fill in the outer circle first. And what I want you to just think about is, what are all the things going on in the external world today that are kind of regular points of concern or worry? Like, when I say regular points, like they're popping in multiple times a day, or it's enough that it's really kind of shifting your emotional state, that are largely outside of your influence. And before I kind of go in a little bit more detail there, I think the net of the message that I received on this is that a lot of us are draining ourselves by giving our energy away to the external environment unconsciously, right? There is no shortage of information that we're being exposed to. There are like 10 new things, situations, issues going on like each and every single day. And as we're kind of receiving this information, if we're not figuring out ways to either manage, right, how that information is coming in by actually not even viewing it or accessing it, but even as the information comes in, which is kind of inevitable as big situations and crises and all these various things are going on, that we really have a way to be able to filter it and manage it. And then we have some tools, some thought-based tools, body tools, energy tools, right, to be able to just manage it and release it. And so what I want you guys to do, just kind of like keeping that in mind, is to kind of do this big kind of like brain dump and list on kind of all the external things that you're focusing on. And I want you to also just be really honest with yourself as you're making this list, and really look at any patterns where you're kind of coming from judgment or ego or victimhood, or maybe even a place of disempowerment, or even getting stuck in fear-based thought loops. Places where you're kind of giving your power away and thinking that, by me thinking about this or by me worrying about this, I'm actually doing something. Like, where are you applying that story? Because, this has been a journey for myself for the last couple of years, specifically with worry. As I stepped into being a mom and having kids, I worried a ton the first, couple of years of parenthood. And I don't know, I can actually literally check worry off my list. Like, I really do not worry anymore. I've gone so deeply into these practices and be able to kind of let it go. And we kind of have this idea, a lot of us carry just societally or from our childhood or whatever it is, that, if there's something terrible or awful is happening in the world or just even in our lives, that by worrying about it or thinking about it, we're actually going to do something about it. It's actually doing something, right? By worrying, we're actually doing something. And there's a quote by Eckhart Tolle that, goes something to the extent of, worrying is pointless. He's pretty frank. Worrying is pointless, and worrying never helps you get to solutions. So just kind of look for those situations where you're kind of placing your attention to something, putting worry or, thought to that either isn't within your circle of influence, or you're not really taking the next step of saying, like, here's something I am interested in and really putting my focus and my heart and looking to shift in my life in the world, but I'm just worrying and I'm not actually taking concrete actions on it, right? So that's just kind of the idea behind that. So really get clear with yourself, develop this list of all the external things that have kind of been circling in your mind, and get them all down on the paper. And as I kind of mentioned with some of these more political or global events, it is really important to kind of sit with yourself and kind of ask the question, like, is this external event something that's really calling me to take action and pulling my heart? I know we all want to change and shift like everything, but we only have so much energy, we only have so much resources. And so it's really important, like, you're going to take an issue you want to impact farther by actually putting clarity and direct intention to it than trying to focus like on a million things and being kind of like lost and in chaos about it, right? It's like the last thing we want to do in trying to, impact the world and shift things is add more chaos to it. And I could also promise you that your impact is going to be like 10x if you come from a place of aligned response and action versus, reaction. So the more kind of clarity you have, right, the more shifts you can create in the external world. And I really wanted to mention these external events first because I know it's just one of those areas, like when we talked about the barometer at the beginning, like whether you're the 8, 9, 10, that if you can really put more attention to, kind of in your scale of overwhelm that we kind of chatted about and mentioned at the beginning, that you can really create quick shifts. Like, I think you'll be surprised how much of your energy and thought process you're giving away to a lot of these external events. And I know I kind of obviously have gone on now for a little bit about all these external events going on because it's just such a hot topic for all of us. But obviously this list and everything you put on the outside and you put on the inside, it can be anything in your life, from your job to your relationships, your kids. Example from one of my clients the other day is that so I have a coaching practice and I work with a lot of female executives and entrepreneurs and things like that to kind of shift either out of corporate roles or just create more alignment within their roles. So they're really focused on their life purpose and passion and all those types of things. And this client is kind of in a situation where it's really not the right timing in her life to switch out of her current role. There's just a lot of other things going on, and it would be kind of a bigger dysregulator to her nervous system than kind of staying in her current position. And so what we kind of really worked on is kind of looking at, we can't change the necessarily change the macro office environment. We can't change the attitude of our coworkers, but here's what we can change about the situation. So while there's a lot more, complicated, nuanced situation that I won't get into here, just a good example of where you can kind of look at some of the different areas in your life. I mean, it could be your job. Like right now, maybe you're not going to go off and become an entrepreneur or follow your passion that you've had for your entire life, but you're kind of on that journey towards working toward it. And so just get really clear on what are the things you can influence right now in this moment over the next couple weeks, and then what are the things you can't. And so let me just take a quick note of my notes here so I don't miss anything. Okay, yeah, so that's really the net of it. Is so you're kind of going through this practice, putting the things in the middle, putting the things on the outside. And then as you kind of step back and you look at all the things that you've written down, I think you're going to really find that you're going to be surprised about how much you're giving away your power and your energy to a lot of things that are outside of your influence. And then you're going to also find that the things on the inside, you might be kind of pushing under the rug, or you might not be actually taking direct actions that are as impactful as you could, right? So if you take more action inside like these areas of influence, that you can really, really create kind of quick shifts in your life. All right, so now that you guys have this list, we've got these 2 things, I want you to grab another sheet of paper. And I'll be honest, this next step isn't 100% necessary. You could just kind of keep moving forward with this one sheet, but I find it helpful for the next kind of steps that are coming to grab another sheet of paper and then take all the things that are in the middle circle and write them on the front, and all the things that are on the outside circle and write them on the back. So then you kind of just have this really clear, like, here's the things I can influence, and then here's the things I can't influence. All right, so now that you've done that, you've copied it over onto another sheet of paper, we're on to step 3. And this is where I want you to look at the back side of the paper. And these are all the things that are outside of your influence. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take one of my favorite mindfulness practices and kind of just apply it here with the broader objective of helping you really clear your energy field from all these things on your list that are pulling your attention and energy. So I want you to take a close look at this list. And for the next couple days, just to start, I'd like you to set an intention to just bring awareness to all of these things, all of the thoughts that are arising that are related to all of these elements, and just begin to label them. You can begin to just notice them, or sometimes there's a practice called just like thought labeling, where you could just literally come up with a label. You could just literally say outside, which kind of just gives your brain something to latch onto, and just really start to consciously notice when these external events that you can't influence are coming into your sphere of attention. And then this is where your work really comes in, is you then have to make the conscious decision to let go of them, and perhaps it's mentally reminding yourself of the action related, to this external thing outside of your influence that actually is, and that action that you're taking, like this is going on, but you know what? I know what my action is and I'm centered. And then you're kind of able to let go. Or maybe you're just simply let going, you're labeling the thought and saying outside, and you're just simply let going of it. And if this isn't a practice that you've done in the past, or, you don't ever really draw awareness to your thoughts, you haven't been deep into kind of mindfulness practices, or even know what maybe the state of the observer is, or things like that, just as kind of a moment of caution, you can kind of be overwhelmed. Like when you get into this, it's like, holy crap, I have a lot of thoughts and they're all over the place, and etc. So just be aware if that comes in, or even if you've been in this practice for a really long time, just setting the attention to set more kind of awareness to noticing these things where you are giving away your power, or you are giving away your energy. You'll be surprised, like where you can actually catch yourself. I do it with myself a lot. I'm just like, wow, I thought I was really on top of this, and here these thoughts are kind of coming in. So you're going to kind of just go over that process over the next couple of days, look at those thoughts as they come in, be willing to let them go. And I talk about this a lot in my mindfulness classes, but what you're really doing here is you're creating a new neural network in your brain that's allowing you to bring awareness to them and then to release them. And so over time, this is going to get easier and easier. For myself, I've been in this work for really deeply for 7 years, but almost 10 years. And I can say at this point now, not only do I have fewer and fewer thoughts, but the thoughts that do come in are just super relevant to me in the moment. So just over time, it's a process. I always equate it to, lifting weights in the gym. You continue to do the curls, and you just get stronger and stronger, and laying that foundation in your brain as well. And then step 4 is to turn back over to the front side. And this is where you're going to look at the things you can influence and really take a close look at the items you've listed. And you're just going to do a bit of a priority exercise, right? Like it depends how much you've written down here and kind of what you have going on like in your life at this point in time. But really look at it and say, like, what are the 2 to 3 things that are really causing me the most overwhelm? And that, or even just kind of looking at the lens of like, what are the things that I could address that could really create, significant shifts like pretty quickly. So just circle those, and then I want you to write down a list of actions, you can take in the next couple of days that are really gonna, with that lens of like less stress, less overwhelm, really shifting my sphere of influence on these situations. Write down what those actions are. And again, with anything, and the thing I focus on the most with people is that then you have to follow through, right? That's really the true work, is you have to follow through on all these actions. And one of the things that can be really helpful here is to just add a layer of accountability for yourself in both of these spheres. So you could share, some of the core things you're focusing on letting go, kind of in your external list, and some of the core things you're working on taking aligned actions with on your internal list. And you can share them with a partner, with a friend. You can put them in the comments of this video. You can reply to our email and share them with us there. Just really kind of like give yourself some accountability on it as well if you can. And then the final step, which I guess is probably step 5 at this point, is you're going to keep the piece of paper in a place where you can check in on it. So you can put it in your bathroom, you could put it, on your dresser where you get changed, whatever it is. But just take a moment, like in the morning or at night, if you're kind of one of those people that has a lot of spiraling thoughts before bed, to just kind of check in on it and say, you know what, like, I'm going to put my awareness to these thoughts today, and I'm going to be able to let them go. And then here's where I'm really focusing my attention on the things I can influence and the actions I'm going to take. And if you guys do this over the course of a couple days, but ideally over 2 weeks, like just in 2 weeks, you're going to see a significant shift and really start to move, like what I was talking about before, that barometer of kind of overwhelm and fear and all those types of things, and start to kind of move yourself down the ladder a little bit. So that's it, you guys. If you have any questions, you can simply hit respond in the email, or send us a comment, or even just direct message us on our Instagram. We're at the Infinite Kids is kind of the easiest way to reach us on social media. And we'll do our best to answer any of your questions, or just give you, support in any way we can. And guys, I want you to also just kind of just stepping back again, is just to kind of close out is that over the next course of the next couple days, as I talked about, we're going to be really stepping more into the mind and body. And I want you to think of this practice and take the time to do it, because you can kind of like come into this process. Let's think about it. You have like all this noise, right? All this noise is kind of going on. And just by doing this practice, you're going to bring like the level of noise in your life down to here. And then as we step into day 2, 3, 4, and 5, like, that's when we're really going to start to say, okay, like here's the external influences coming in. Here's everything that's going on in my life. And then how do I start to move this energy in my body? How do I start to do some practices that are going to, really help me to not only move the energy but create shifts in my life? And it's just going to kind of give you a better foundation to work from. You can think about it as a lot of times we start with like nervous system regulation in these situations, and it's just like you're just going to be able to ramp down your thoughts, your mind, your nervous system, all those types of things by doing this practice. So I know it takes a little bit of time, and it can seem like, oh, this is like a practice I've done in the past, or maybe it's kind of obvious, but take a couple minutes. You can draw the circles, you can write it in a journal, like whatever aligns with you. Just kind of take the general parameters of what I'm kind of suggesting here and go ahead and do it, because it's going to really help you as we step into these more like tangible kind of practices over the next couple days, just to really kind of, like I said, bring down the noise and really be able to kind of create more shifts and intentional shifts within your body. So tomorrow we'll be back with the next practice. It's probably one of my absolute favorite practices that I've developed over the last couple years, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. Again, feel free to reach out, and thank you so much for joining us.